Hey guys, it's Will with Vinyl Appreciation Society, and you are watching my top albums of the decade. This is part one, and this is just kind of like a general catch-all category. I'm going to do another video where I do my favorite heavy albums of the decade being 2010 up until end of 2019, and then I'll be doing a video that's like my favorite, like I'm going to put them in order and like properly rank them and stuff. So this is just kind of like stuff I really liked from this past decade that doesn't really fall into the heavy category and that isn't like my favorite stuff. And the reason I left the heavy stuff out as a separate thing is I'm going to create a Spotify playlist where I put one track from all these records that I mentioned on there, and we'll put a link in the description of this video so you can go and listen to that. And I know that there are people who just don't like heavy music, and it would take them out of the experience of the playlist if all of a sudden like a grindcore song came on or whatever. So I'm just going to keep that as its own thing. So let's just dive right into this. The first thing I have here is Los Campesinos. So they put out, I think, 4 records this decade. Romance is Boring, Hello Sadness, No Blues, and 6 Scenes. And I really love this band. They're a band whose all the members I think are English, but they're called a Welsh band because they met at college in Cardiff, which is in Wales, or at university rather. And they play a kind of like melodic indie rock that is heavily informed by punk and emo. And their earlier stuff is more emo, and their later stuff is more like melodic indie rock. And one of the things that really stands out, I think, for a lot of people, well, there are a lot of standout things about this band. They have a lot of members. That's one of them. And to see all that, there's like 7 or 8 people like up on the stage, and they're like one person's playing piano, the other person's playing a synthesizer. There's like 3 guitar players, and it's just like there's kind of like cacophonous madness going on. And they write really great melodic songs, high energy. They're really fun music. But the lyricist is pretty unique, the vocalist and lyricist, and he has this kind of like rapid fire, almost talky, singy punk rock delivery. He writes really good chorus melodies, but he also is a really great lyricist, and I think he struggled with depression and some other issues like that, and all of that comes out in his lyrics in a way that is funny and really relatable. And he's just like he's a really great lyricist, and they write really great songs, and they're really great as a band. The combination of the fact that they have that and they ended up with like a great lyricist and vocalist, I think, takes them up to the next level. So this is my favorite record of theirs. It's called No Blues, and I've played this for people who have really loved it, and I've played it for people who are like, what is this cacophonous noise of synthesizers and people shouting? It's not noisy music, but because there's so many members, it's just like a CD booklet. Because there's so many members of the band, there is like a little bit of like an element of chaos because you have like synthesizers and drums and all these guitar lines happening at once and stuff like that. But that's No Blues, and that's a really great record. And then this is their most recent record. This is called 6 Scenes, and I bought this at Amoeba. I saw them in, I think, February of 2017. And they were selling this record at the show, but the line at the merch table was really long, and my wife was like 7 months pregnant or something like that. So we didn't hang around to wait in the line, although they were taking pictures and signing autographs and stuff, but whatever. Here you go. So this is like the first press, I think, like limited variant that was only sent to indie record stores and then maybe sold by the band, and it's kind of this like light blue / pink thing going on there, and this is a really great album too. This is poppier than the I think a little bit poppier than the older stuff, but has really great lyrics on this record too. That's Los Campesinos. What else do we have here? Hey, let's do Avril Lavigne. So I really like Avril Lavigne, and I know that there are people who probably think that I'm being ironic. I am not. I just really like Avril Lavigne, so I have her records on CD. These are the 2 of the 3 albums that she put out this decade. One is Goodbye Lullaby, which has some really fun songs on it, such as What the Hell. I mean, come on, that's a fun song. This is like less rock than her earlier records and more kind of like pop ballads and acoustic kind of stuff, but this is a fun record. And then we have the self-titled record here, which has Rock and Roll on it, which is the lead-off track, which is one of my favorite Avril Lavigne singles. This record kind of sounds like there's some stuff on here that sounds like Johnny Cash. That's kind of dark, like 1 or 2 songs, but there's like a kind of side to this album that is like, you kind of feel like she was like smoking weed and drinking white wine and listening to 311 and Sublime. It's like party vibes, like this just all hang out and play like party acoustic pop music. But this is a really fun album. And then her most recent record, which I think is called Head Above Water. I know that's the title of like the big single, but I really liked that album too. I just don't have a physical copy of it because I'm broke as a joke right now. So what else do we have? Earthless. Earthless put out a couple records this decade. And I like them all, but this is really the standout to me. There's a 30-minute song on this. This is kind of like Hendrix worship, super psychedelic, instrumental, just like nonstop shredding all over your face. It starts high energy. It gets even higher energy. This is one of my like absolute favorite. Here's like the orange. Like if we're talking in terms of like pure guitar records, this is absolutely one of my favorite pure guitar records, not just of this decade, but like in heavy rotation ever that I listen to. It's just like endless shredding and like really strong rhythm section that holds it down at like awesome riffs and like I said, super high energy performances. And this is just an incredible record. It's called From the Ages. The band is Earthless. I think this is on TP Records. Yeah, TP Records. This was released in 2013. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of shredding. What else do we have? Hey, let's do some hip hop. Game. This is like, so I've listened to this record so often, and it's been in the car for so long that it's like covered in like coffee and stains and crap like that. This is Jesus Piece. I'm a big fan of Game, and this is probably this and the Doctor's Advocate are my two favorite Game records. This is just like every track on here is awesome. Like Meek Mill is on here, 2 Chainz, Rick Ross, Kanye West, J. Cole, Common, Trey Songz, Lil Wayne, Big Sean, Pusha T, Kendrick Lamar. Like, it's just ridiculous. Jamie Foxx is on here. Kevin Hart is on here. He does like a little comedy interlude. Wiz Khalifa, Young Jeezy, Future. And the songs on here are just like, one of the things that Game is really well known for is having a great ear for beats. The beats on here are incredible. There's great hooks. Like, the songs are really good. The bars are really good. I love this record. I've listened to it so many times. This is probably my favorite, well, second favorite hip-hop record of the past decade. Jesus Piece by Game. What else do we have? There's so much here I don't even know what to pick. Let's do D'Antwoord. So I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it because I don't speak Afrikaans or Dutch or whatever language that's in. But they're a hip-hop group from South Africa. They're like rave rap is how they're often described. They really sound like rave music, but they're rapping over it. And they're playing characters. And their whole thing is almost like this kind of like meta filter / social commentary kind of thing. But they write these just like really vile, crazy, disgusting, violent, weird narratives in their lyrics. There's some amazing songs on here. Enter the Ninja is such a great song. Evil Boy, Rich Bitch. There's like there's a run of songs on here that are just, it's just freaking incredible. And I like all of their stuff. This is the only one I have on a physical format, but I have all of their records digitally, and I listen to them quite a bit on iTunes, especially when I'm at work. It's like really great music to just like listen to and be like, yeah, my job sucks, my life sucks, everything sucks, but at least I have D'Antwoord being just crazy people in my ears. So check them out if you're into that kind of thing. Let's do 311. I did a video already on this, so I don't have to talk a ton about it. But this album snuck in at the 11th hour. This came out just this last July, and I freaking love this record. I cannot stop listening to it. As I said in the little video we did, I also really like this variant. Like, come on. That's pretty freaking cool. As I said in the video that we did on this, this is my favorite 311 record since Evolver, and Evolver is one of my top 3, probably 311 records. I'd say if I had to pick a top 3 311 records, I'd go Evolver, Music, and Sound System. Not in that order, but like the 3 I listened to the most, the 3 I have listened to the most over the course of my life. But this is called Voyager 311. I'm going to 311 Day next year, 2020, so we'll try to get some content around that. I'm super excited about that. What do we do next? Hey, how about this? My beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy, Kanye West. I have not listened to anything Kanye West has put out since this, other than like the occasional single. This album is just, this is one of the most batshit insane records. Like, I mean, the first track has a choir, a sample from King Crimson, like a string hook. It's just like, this is like the full manifestation of the genius of Kanye West, like firing on all cylinders as a producer. He really took his rapping ability and his lyrics to the next level on that album. That is, I mean, you could easily say that is the best album of this decade. I am not trying to do an objective list of the best albums of this decade, so that's not it for me, just in terms of my personal taste. Obviously, I much prefer like rock music, metal, like punk, heavier stuff like that. But if I were to sit down and be like, okay, as a critic or journalist or whatever, I have to compile a list of what are objectively the best records of the decade, I would have no qualms picking that at number 1. It's just a freaking phenomenal album. Hey, let's do this. There Is No Teenage Love. We've done a video on this too before, so I don't have to talk too much about it. This is ambient music. It's very beautiful. It kind of reminds me of Stars of the Lid. And obviously, you know, evokes Brian Eno and that kind of stuff. And here's this kind of purple inner sleeve and white vinyl. So I think this is self-released, and the band still has copies of this, and it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $15 on Bandcamp. If you just there's dog hair all over this record, because of course there freaking is, because there's dog hair all over everything I own, because having dogs is the bane of my existence. But anyway, I love my dogs, but it does kind of drive you crazy, especially when you have two kids, and there's just like I have two kids, as you may not know, and there's just like there's dog hair on the baby rattle, and there's dog hair on the bottles, and you're like, what is going on, dogs? This album is called L.A. Hex. There Is No Teenage Love is the name of the band, and this is almost, I think this is created almost all with guitars, just manipulated through effects pedals and stuff like that. It's just really beautiful ambient music, and I love that record. So what do we have here? Wiley. I'm a huge fan of Wiley. Wiley is a grime artist from the UK. He's from London. And this is, I have it's just like a random blank CD in here. This record is called Godfather. So Wiley put out at least 3 like really stellar records. Snakes and Ladders, I think, is one of them. And then Evolve or Be Extinct. And then this is called Godfather. This is the only one I have on a physical format, but I do have all those records. I bought the downloads of the other 2 from his label in the UK. But if you don't know what grime is, it's kind of like, it's UK rap music kind of, but it's not rap. So it's people rapping, but the music is much more influenced by like jungle and house and club music and like dance hall and kind of like music from Jamaica and Trinidad, like that kind of music. And then just like crazy ass rapping with like London accents. Wiley is far and away my favorite grime artist. Bring Them All / Holy Grime is on here featuring Devlin. That's one of my favorite Wiley tracks. Can't Go Wrong is on here. That's also a banger. And this is just and I think I might like Snakes and Ladders a little bit more. That album is just freaking incredible. And I listened. That album came out around when I broke my arm, and I remember like being on painkillers, like narcotic painkillers, and listening to that album on my headphones and just being like transported to a different world. Like it is so good. But I'm a huge fan of Wiley. Highly recommended. Go check that out. What else do we have? Hey, look, it's Taylor Swift. Red. So I enjoy Taylor Swift. I'm not going to say that I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, but I love this record. I Knew You Were Trouble, and what are the other what is that other song that's really big from here? I'm not even gonna remember. I'm like losing my mind. All Too Well. That's the one about Jake Gyllenhaal, right? I really like that song. We're Never Getting Back Together. So the story behind this is, I had heard We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together on YouTube, I think, and I was like, hey, that's kind of a fun song. And then I went to a bar with a friend of mine, and I was a little bit drunk, and I had to drive home. So I was like, let's go to Starbucks and get some coffee so I can sober up a little bit before I drive home. And they were selling this record at the Starbucks. And as I was ordering my coffee, I was like, hey, I like Taylor Swift. So I bought this. And then it never left my car because my wife really likes this record too. And we would just listen to it over and over again. It's just like I really love pop, like really good pop music. I don't just like, blanket listen to generic shit pop music, but like I really like really well done pop music. And in my top 10 from this decade, you'll see a couple pop records too. And like Charlie XCX, I'm really liking right now and stuff like that. So I love that record. Okay, so we just got a couple more things left here. And you know what? I forgot to mention actually. I have another pile of records down here that I totally forgot about. There's been some really great post-rock that has come out this past decade, and I would be remiss not to mention it. Mono, Requiem for Hell, which I have right here. This album, and then the most recent Mono record, which came out this year in 2019, which I honestly can't even remember the name of. I know, shame on me. I loved Mono. Like when Walking Cloud and Deep Red Sky came out, and You Are There, and One Step More and You Die. Like, I love those 3 records. And then I kind of stopped listening to them. And then this record, which came out, I think, in 2016, got me way back into them. And I love this record, and then I really enjoyed the one they put out this year, too. Sigur Rós put out Kveker, I think is how you pronounce it, this decade, which is, I think that was like 2013-ish, 2012. That's a really good album. Their keyboard player left, and so they went to like a heavier sound of like drums, bass, and guitars, and it has like those really haunting, beautiful moments that you expect of a Sigur Rós record, but it also has kind of an unexpected heaviness to it. And then Riceboy Sleeps, which is a project with Jonesy from Sigur Rós that I think is a collaboration, but I don't. It might be a solo record, but it's like if you imagine Sigur Rós as like pure ambient music, that's what it is, and it's a really freaking beautiful album. I think it came out in 2011, 2010. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was 2010. Fantastic record and highly recommended. And like I said, we're going to make a playlist, so you'll be able to find all of this stuff and listen to it. I made a list here because I was really worried I was going to forget stuff that I didn't have physical copies of. And so I think I'm covering everything pretty well here. Here we have Swearin'. I got really into Salinas Records maybe like 3 years ago, and I started buying up all their stuff. And so this came out in like 2013, I think, but I didn't get into it until maybe 2015, 2016. This is an awesome album. It's like indie punk, super catchy. There's a male vocalist and a female vocalist, and they each write songs, and so you get like the diversity of the vocal styles and the songwriting styles. And this is just an awesome freaking album. It's short, it's punchy, it's catchy. I could listen to this over and over and over. I actually burned that onto a CD and put it in my car and would listen to it a ton. Bleached, I have loved Bleached like the past few. I saw them open for Against Me maybe like 2.5, 3 years ago. They were incredible, and I have not stopped listening to them since. This is Welcome to the Worms. So this is a full-length record, and this has so many good songs on it. Wednesday Night Melody is such a good song. Sour Candy is such a good song. Hollywood, We Did It Wrong. We Did It All Wrong is such a good song. Wasted on You is, I mean, there's just, this is like, and this reminds me of kind of like the Runaways, of like big, epic, like 70s hard rock. And it's just freaking awesome. It also reminds me a little bit of Nirvana, honestly. And then they put out an EP called Can You Deal, which I might like even, it's only 4 songs, but I might like it even more than this. Can You Deal is probably my favorite Bleach song, the title track off of that. Built to Spill, Untethered Moon. This is like just incredible. I mean, if you know who Built to Spill is, you know what this sounds like. This is like old Built to Spill if they grew older and mellowed. Like, that's exactly what it sounds like. And there's like really phenomenal lead guitar work on here. The lyrics on this album are incredible. And I really, really love the lyrics on this record. And I listened to this album a lot when it came out. This came out in 2015. And it was my final semester in grad school, actually. So I was listening to this record at the time when I was finishing my thesis project and a bunch of other stuff. And again, another one that this came with a CD, so I listened to it a ton in the car. You know, Built to Spill obviously has heavy influence from, and our peers with, to some extent, Dinosaur Jr. And I hear a lot of kind of Dinosaur Jr. influence and kind of parallel sounds on that record. So Licky Lee put out 2 records this decade. One was called, which I have right here on my lap, Wounded Rhymes, and then, God, what was the other one called? I'm not going to remember, but she put out 3, actually, because she put out one just a couple years ago that dropped by surprise. But the 2 that I really loved were Wounded Rhymes, which has I Follow Rivers on it, which is a great song. But there's a lot of great songs on here, like Silent My Song is so good. I Know Places, Sadness is a Blessing, Unrequited Love, Youth Knows No Pain. And these are the records that I'm not pulling out for you are all just standard black vinyl. You don't really need to see them, but this is a phenomenal record, and it's almost made it into my like top 12 records of the decade, but it just missed out on the last spot. And then her record that came out after this is equally as strong. And then we have All Dogs, Kicking Every Day. This is also Salinas Records. This is like an indie punk kind of album. There's a song on here called That Kind of Girl that is absolutely one of my favorite songs of this past decade. I have listened to that song hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'm not kidding you because I have the play count on my iTunes, and like if you combine the number of times I listen to it on my iPod, in the car, and on my computer, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. But this whole record is so good. Flowers, Leading Me Back to You, Ophelia, Skin, Garden. Like the second half of this record is phenomenal. First half is super good too. I can't say enough good things about this band. I think this is the only full-length record that they've put out. And then the songwriter and vocalist and rhythm guitar player has since started a different project and put out a record under that. I think her name is Marin Jones, but that's the only All Dogs record. But I really, really love that album. Here we have Hush. Wait, hold on. Hush is their second record, right? This band is called Kindling, and Kindling is I think the guitar player is the vocalist from Ampere. And who's like a kind of like a spastic like hardcore punk band. But this is basically like My Bloody Valentine worship. And they're from Western Massachusetts. And I just really love this record. And I think this is the drummer from Ampere too. I think that's actually how I first heard about this band, because I worked at Whole Foods in Western Massachusetts with 2 of the members of Ampere. One of them was the drummer, one of them was a bass player, and so I knew him. And so one of my friends was like, "Oh, his name is Andy. Did you know Andy has a new band?" "Oh no, what is it?" "Oh, they're called Kindling. They're kind of like My Bloody Valentine." I was like, "Oh, I like shoegaze. I should check that out." And they put out 2 records, and I didn't bring the other one in with me, but they're both really good albums. But I think I prefer this one by a little bit. It's called Everywhere Else, and I love this because this is like reminds me of like these handmade like inserts from these punk records I used to buy when I was in high school. Yeah, super fun music. And then finally, another band that came really, really, really close to making my top albums of the decade. And honestly, the only reason I didn't put them in there was that I had to decide whether I wanted to do a dozen or a baker's dozen. And I was like, I don't know, let's just do 12. Who cares? Fuck it. So this is Pup. Pup has been one of my greatest discoveries of this decade, and I have listened to them so much that as I'm talking, I'm like, why didn't I put them? And they really do deserve a spot in my top albums of the decade. So consider this an appendage to my like absolute top albums of the decade list. But here we have The Dream Is Over. This is their second record. This is such an incredible album. Their first record I just have on CD, and I just figured people wouldn't be too interested in me bringing in a CD and showing it off. There's the lyrics. This band is from Toronto, Canada, and they're kind of like a punk band, and they're kind of like an indie rock band, and I think they perfectly split the difference between like high energy indie rock and melodic punk, and I think that's what people like so much about them, is that they're this really interesting combination of those things, and they write kind of like weird time signatures, and they're all excellent at what they do. So the bass player is a great bass player. The drummer is a fantastic drummer. The lead guitar player is really like unique, and he stands out a lot from other guitar players of this type of music. And he writes like really melodic leads that really add to their sound. And then the vocalist, lyricist, rhythm guitar player is just like he is such great high energy, like punky vocal delivery, and he writes such great lyrics. They're kind of like these self-effacing, tongue-in-cheek screeds. So Pup, and like I said, I have fully convinced myself over the past couple minutes that they should have been in my top albums of the decade list, like top, like top dozen. I really, really love these releases in this band, so that's a fun little bonus for me to throw at the end of this video. So my name is Will. This has been the kind of like catch-all category, top albums of the decade, 2010 to end of 2019. We're doing two more of these. One is heavy albums, and one is like my top, which is like top dozen, like I said about 1,000 times. I don't need to tell you again. If you're still watching this, you might as well subscribe, because it's been about a week since we started this video. I always talk way more than I intend to. Thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite records of this decade are, or what you think about any of these albums. We will catch you on the flip side.